The Bodies of Motion Library was something that I started to photograph like maybe 7 years ago, maybe more than 7 years. And it was originally I was taking all these reference photographs to support my anatomy courses because I needed to illustrate the articulation of the body in a certain way. And it's just quite haphazard searching the internet for stuff, right? And when I can actually control it and I can light it myself and direct it, then I would get the stuff that I wanted. And there's a lot of magic that happens kind of anatomically, figuratively, when you see the body kind of articulating, moving through a range of motion, doing something dynamic, something intentional, like even if it's a kick, a dance kick or a jump, right? There's a whole network of muscular activity that happens to realize it. It's not just muscles contracting, it's also muscles relaxing. And so there's almost infinite form that happens, in the body, in the variety of stuff that we can do athletically. And so that was the original kind of the nexus of the project, was to capture that as anatomy reference. But on a bigger scale, I love making images. Like I love when I do digital sculpture or anything in the computer, I love to make images. When I draw, I love to make images. Photography is making images, and it's for people who are into digital sculpture or visual effects, lighting and rendering is photography, right? So I've done photography for a long time digitally in the computer, and then so it was a natural extension to you understand artistically the concepts of lighting. Even if you're just a CG lighter, you extend that in the real world, and then you can make really beautiful pictures if you have good source material, good subject matter. And that's what it became for me. It became a project of reference, but also it became a project of photography, because the two aren't always the same. Like somebody can take a picture for reference, and that doesn't make it a beautiful photograph, right? For me, it's about lighting and controlling that. Yeah, no, it's true. Like it is expensive to shoot, and it's self-funded mostly, right? So if I do a freelance project, I will take some of the proceeds from that and put it in the photo shoot fund, right? And so overall, I mean, eventually I'll make my money back, I suppose. But I guess all the early stuff was not even about that. All the early stuff that I shot, it was self-financed, but it went right into the courses. So in some ways, it was an expense against the courses. The current stuff is, I also use it in the courses, but again, it is self-funded. And yeah, you're right, it's very expensive to do. So people should subscribe so I can continue to shoot more photos. I mean, I guess that's the marketing plug. But yeah, you're right, it's about resources. And I mean, Kickstarter is always an option for things that you want to fund. And I've thought about that, and maybe I would do that. It's always a possibility. For the longest time, I was working in visual effects as my day job, and then the passion projects are the evening job, right? I mean, that's not unique. I mean, that's the way you get stuff done. And often the passion project is, if you're working in a related field, the passion project feeds into your possibilities in your job. And so for example, all my anatomy stuff, my self-study in anatomy, my sculpting projects that fed into my work as a character artist, modeler, character supervisor in visual effects, do horse anatomy studies at night on my own out of personal interest, and then work on Warhorse, doing the articulations and the sculpts for that film, right? Because of the crossover. The self-study happened way before the film stuff, and probably if I didn't do that out of my own interest, maybe I wasn't working on the film. It's precious time. It's a precious thing to have, like that block where you just pursue your own interests. So it's very important. That's a big question, right? I'm not into tips, really, because the tips is like proposing a shortcut, right? And there's no shortcut. A shortcut will give you an incomplete understanding, and that's not what you want. Anybody who wants to learn anatomy wants to know all of it, or they want to have an artistic grasp of anatomy. The way that I teach it is working from the outside in. I do like 2D écréché studies where you study imagery, photos, sculptures, old master drawings, and you try to understand what's creating all the surface form that you see. And a lot of anatomy instructors do écréché sculptures and things from the inside out, where you build the skeleton, put a layer of muscle on, put the more superficial muscles on. You do it that way, but that way doesn't give you a good understanding of the surface appearance. And at the end of the day, as an artist, all you want to know is the surface appearance. So that's my method. We work from like skeletal landmarks and bony points on the body into kind of the forms, the muscles that interlock and kind of originate from those create. And there's no shortcut, right? It's an ongoing process of study, but I try to break it down the best that I can. I think I teach very effectively through in my workshops and my online sessions, but again, no shortcuts. It's just you got to do the work. But to follow that up, the last little bit, you should invest, if you're going to be a figurative artist, you should invest in that now or early in your career, because it doesn't change for the rest of your life as a figurative artist. You can only deepen your understanding once you get started and over the hump of learning. And so it's a really powerful tool once you get it, but you don't neglect the fact that you need to know it if you're going to be a figurative artist, because it's the vocabulary of the body, right? So you have to know it. I mean, the body is a puzzle. You could think about, to expand on it, if you ever do a jigsaw puzzle, the first thing you do, you put the corner pieces in, right? Because they're very recognizable. I would equate those to the landmarks on the body. And then the edge pieces are the other kind of secondary landmarks, bony landmarks on the body. Those go in very quickly in a sculpt or in a drawing. All the internal connections connect off of those, right? So on a jigsaw puzzle, you're starting to put ones that connect to the edge pieces. And over time, you have connections on connections, and you fill up the jigsaw puzzle. The first time you do it, it takes a long time. Nobody ever does it twice, but if you did it again, you'd be faster. If you did it 10 times, by the 10th time, you'd be like, okay, I know that one goes there, that one goes there. This one is attached to that one. I'll fill in some of that area. If you do that like 100 times, or, you do it for 5 years, 10 years, you just take the puzzle out and you put it together in like 1 minute. What took you an hour or 2 hours before is just like, it's unconscious. You know exactly where the piece goes. And it's the same for the body. I mean, the body, we all have different proportions, but we all have the same interlocking, the same origins and insertions, the same bones. And so you learn it once, and then you can reuse that same pattern forever, for your artistic lifetime, your artistic career. So that's what I say to everybody: invest early, because then you only get better and faster and more creative and more expressive with it, because anatomy is just a tool, right? It's just a tool to make your things grounded in a constructional reality. You can still exaggerate, you can still stylize, but it gives you kind of the scaffolding to do that. Otherwise, you're just making up forms, and that it'll fall apart.